Welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Teachers Podcast. Today is going to be my first solo episode. So today's episode will be about my experience with Sasquatch, also known as Bigfoot. There's a lot of other names for it, but I'm going to share a little bit about what happened at my first encounter, my second encounter, and my third encounter. So it all started in Mount Shasta, California, which is considered the root chakra of the planet. And it was 2020. It was the heart of COVID, and COVID was in full swing. I had chosen to go on a road trip with my girlfriend at the time. We rented a U-Haul or a Hertz van, actually. A Hertz van. It was like 25, $30 a day. And we put a mattress in there. We grabbed the dog and we went on an adventure. And we traveled along different parks in California. And when we got to Mount Shasta, that's when things started getting really interesting. So there's this campground about 15 minutes outside of the town of Mount Shasta, and it's a railroad campground. And when you get in there, there is all these Sasquatch signs and little stickers you can get and all that kind of stuff. And when we got there, I was like, oh, okay, this is really interesting. It was really quiet. There wasn't that many people there. No, not a lot of people were traveling and going to these places during COVID. So I go get the camp spot, and maybe 2 hours in, it's still light outside. It's close to sunset. I hear this thud, this knocking on a tree, and it's deep. It doesn't sound like any machine. It doesn't sound like anything a human could do. It wasn't close by. It was probably at least 100 yards away, is what it sounded like. And already I had been super interested in Bigfoot since I was 9 years old. I've been fascinated with Bigfoot because when I was 9 years old, I saw a news report on every channel. I was living in Maryland at the time, and on every channel there was this video of Bigfoot walking in the snow up somewhere in Michigan. And it was on every news channel. And I was like, whoa, what is this? So I was fascinated with it. So I've watched many documentaries, and I know how the tree knocking is something that the Bigfoots do. So I took an apple and I left it on the table that we had at the campsite. And I know that it's nice to give offerings and build a relationship with the Sasquatches. And I was a little bit nervous at first because I've never experienced this or anything like this. And that Northern California, Oregon, Washington, they're all known for Bigfoot encounters, Bigfoot sightings, all those kind of things. And so I was meditating a lot. I was practicing a lot of Kundalini yoga at the time. And so I was really connected, and I would say just connected to spirit, if you will. And there was this moment where I tuned into this Bigfoot that was doing the knocking, and he told me his name, and he was young. He was around my age in their age. Whatever they they might live longer than us, I'm not sure, but it was the being was around my age in their lifespan. So I immediately went into telepathy with this being. Some people call it mind speak. For me, we just connected in my mind. And he started telling me his name, and he's like, if you see me, you'll know it's me because I'll give you a shaka like this. And I was like, all right, cool, man. And he seemed really cool, really down to earth. And he's like, but watch out for my bigger sister, my older sister. She's bigger than me, she's larger than me, and she is very, very curious. So my first encounter was telepathic with this younger Sasquatch. The second encounter was that night when his sister decided to show up at the camp. And it's the middle of the night, and I'm laying down. I'm not sleeping. I'm kind of like in that in between state of sleep and falling asleep. And my girlfriend at the time, she nudges me and she's like, "Hey, did you hear that?" And I'm like, "No, what's up?" And she's like, "I heard something outside." And on this Hertz van, we had a Mexican blanket covering the back window. We just had it pinned up. And she's like, "Look." And I'm like, "What?" And I look, I'm laying flat in the van, and I look up, and about 8 feet up in the air, there's these two bright green eyes looking through the Mexican blanket. And it was bright. It was really bright to the point. I mean, Mexican blankets are pretty thick. They're like maybe a fourth of an inch thick, you know? And I could see these bright eyes looking down into the van. And I grabbed a flashlight and I mean, I had some fear come over me, in that moment. And so I grabbed a flashlight and I just started shining it at the eyes through the Mexican blanket, and it went away. And I was like, "Oh wow. Okay, this is real. This is not just my imagination. I just saw these bright green eyes looking in on us, and wow, okay, this is a real thing." So a few days later, we go up and drive up the mountain. There's this whole road that takes you up to the top of Mount Shasta. And there's this campground that has these giant trees. It's probably the third campground down from the top of the mountain. And we get there and set up camp, set up our van, and it's the middle of the night, and I hear my girlfriend and the dog are asleep, and above the van, there's no trees, totally just clear sky. There's trees around, but above our above our van, there's nothing. So in the middle of the night, I'm also in that in-between state, and I hear this knock, boom, this thud on the top of the van. And immediately I go into this mind speak or telepathy with this being, and he is the guardian of the mountain. And he is big and impressive and super strong, and I could see him in my mind's eye. And he immediately, this has never happened to me before or after this experience, but he immediately makes me bow to him in that space. He he like makes me go down on my knees and my hands, and he's telling me, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm here to connect with the energy of the mountain. I'm here to clean up any trash. I'm here to get any activations, any downloads from the land. I'm here to meet some amazing people and really connect to this land." And he felt my heart. He felt how genuine I was. And he said, "Okay, thank you for being here." And he bowed to me and we bowed to each other. And I was like, whoa. I mean, if it wasn't for that first encounter, I wouldn't have known what was going on. And I was like, wow, this is profound. So I go to sleep and I wake up in the morning and I'm sitting in meditation on the earth in front of the van and I have my eyes closed and I feel his energy again, that guardian of the mountain energy. And I'm like, okay, he's here. And I'm like, oh wow, what's gonna happen? Like it's daytime, it's bright out, and I'm sitting there and I open my eyes and there's this little chipmunk about 5 feet away from me, but under the tree. And I'm like, oh wow. And I go into that mind speak again, into that telepathy. And he's like, I don't need to be this giant creature. I can be a small chipmunk and use a lot less resources, a lot less energy. I need a lot less food, and I can just exist in this form. And I'm like, oh wow, okay, so you can shapeshift, you can change into other animals. And he's like, yeah. And I wasn't sure if this was in my mind or not. So I talked to one of my buddies who actually was on one of the podcasts, and he was in Mount Shasta at the time. Him and I spent some time together at the same time as me, at the same campground, it turns out, but on the other side of the road. And he shared with me that he heard these giant footsteps coming, and it was him and a couple of buddies sitting around the fire. And he shared with me that he heard the footsteps. They were expecting to see this giant Bigfoot, and it was a deer. And that was really interesting because the next time I came to Mount Shasta, the following year or 2 years later, I believe, I came to be part of a conscious retreat. And we were setting up different altars. And I said, we need to make an altar for Bigfoot. We can put some apples there, some oranges, maybe a drum, something that will show the Bigfoot that we're honoring their presence and that we see them and we know that they're here. And we build this little altar under a tree, and within 5, 10 minutes, this deer appears out of just appears, and all the whole camp, the whole retreat sees this deer, and all of us have this recognition, like, wow, okay, that's just Bigfoot in the form of another animal. So that's my experience with Bigfoot. And I've had other experiences on Mount Shasta where I felt their energy. I was hiking and I would just feel them watching me. Or the last time I was 2 times ago, back in 2023, when I went back to Mount Shasta, I could feel the Bigfoot's energy at night. And there was one night back in 2024 when I went, when I saw eyes looking at my girlfriend and I from over probably 50 yards away. And it was different. They weren't green this time. They were like white. So I'm not sure if it was a Bigfoot, but I could feel the Bigfoot energies very strong there. A lot of my friends that are very sensitive to energy have felt the Bigfoot energy around that area very strong. So this is my first time sharing this publicly. So yeah, I would love to hear. any of your Bigfoot encounters, what you think, whether Bigfoot is a shapeshifter, whether Bigfoot is a just a being just like us, or whether you think that it may not exist. I'd love to hear it in the comments. What resonated for me the most was that the Bigfoots have been here way before humans existed on Earth, and that they are able to access these portals, these natural portals on the Earth that can allow them to go to different dimensions, that can allow them to go into other parts of the planet, possibly. And they apparently go deep, deep, deep into the earth when they're ready to die. That's why very few remains have been found of their skeletons and things like that. So, yeah, I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. And for me, it's just like humans. They are individuals and they all have their own individual personalities and different intentions. Some of them are more curious, some are more friendly. And so for me, it was a true honor to experience their presence. And I look forward to one day seeing one in the flesh. So thank you all for joining and watching and listening. For those that are tuning in to the Spiritual Teachers Podcast, it's an honor to be with you today. Until next time, take care.